Hello, my name is Shannon French, and I'm the Inamori Professor in Ethics here at Case Western Reserve University, where I direct the Inamori International Center for Ethics and Excellence.
Hi, I'm David Wetham. I'm Professor of Ethics and the Military Profession at King's College London, and it's a great pleasure to be here with you, Shannon. I'm going to start by asking you, Shannon, we're both professors of military ethics. What is military ethics?
Well, I get that question a lot, and I'm definitely happy to answer it here, although I'll admit I sometimes dodge it when someone asks it of me on an airplane. But the best way to explain military ethics for me is to talk about the two main areas that it focuses on. One has to do with when, if at all, you should take a nation to war. And we use the Latin to describe that. We talk about jus ad bellum, but it is this broad question around when it is permissible, when it might even be necessary to take a nation to war. And it involves a lot of principles that have been honed and explored throughout a just war tradition that spans centuries. And those include things like understanding what constitutes a just cause, understanding who has the right authority to send nations to war, and whether anyone other than a nation should have anything to say in this realm. And we also look at other aspects like what are the intentions that ought to be behind taking anyone into a conflict, and so on. So all of these principles that have been developed are there to help us understand when it might be possible to judge a war as just. But even once you have a conflict, there's an entirely second area of military ethics that is also very wide in its breadth and important in its urgency, and that is the conduct of war. So once you're in a conduct, what are the restraints that ought to guide your action and limit the things that you can do? What are the ways that we should expect people to interact with enemies, with civilians, with the wounded, with prisoners of war? All of these things fall into a category that, again, the Latin is jus in bello, but understanding how to conduct a war justly, because we recognize that even if the cause is initially just, there are still many questions about how you should engage in actually prosecuting that war. So all of this falls into the category, but military ethics is so broad, it also includes actual professional behavior within the military. And it certainly also extends to the relationship between those who serve in the military and the societies that give them that mandate. So that reaches into taking care of veterans and obligations to those who serve, and civil military relations. So it's really quite a wide ranging field.
Absolutely,
Now,
thank you very much.
David, talk to me about how these cards came to be.
Well, you've done a really good job of it, setting out just how broad the area of military ethics is. But one of the challenges that we find trying to teach this area is a lack of resources, a lack of bespoke pedagogical tools, if you like. There's plenty of books on military ethics out there, but military practitioners may be very interested in scholarly tomes on military ethics, but the vast majority of them are also very practical people. They like to get into the issues themselves and discuss them. But there's a challenge there because it's quite a challenging area. It's quite a difficult area for somebody who's not comfortable with the broader implications, the nuances of military ethics, to have a discussion and feel confident that they have given the appropriate answers. And one of the things that you all know very well, Shannon, is that the only thing worse than not having military ethics education is having bad military ethics education and reinforcing the wrong lesson. So one of the challenges that to try and address this challenge, quite a few years ago, we came up with the idea of taking all of the different broad area of military ethics and condensing them down to 52 questions, which covered all of those different areas, and then could be printed onto cards, something that's very familiar and comfortable, and it's tactile and it's nice. It's non-threatening. Um, everybody knows cards, and on each card, as well as being a playing card as well, so you can use it to play games, each card has one of those questions on it. Now that's fine, that prompts debate. That on its own is a really useful thing. But the innovative part of this was that on the back of each card was a QR code, which took you through to the website, where there is additional information, where there is a discussion about what is the right answer and why that is the right answer, so that you can have some confidence that actually, if you're going to have a debate on this, so what actually is the appropriate outcome here. Now, some of those are very black and white. If it's a law of armed conflict question about something that is very clear, then the discussion is not why is this right? It's much more about how do you do this in practice? How would you apply this principle in practice? But there are other questions in military ethics which aren't black and white, and they require judgment. When should I say no to my state? If my state has ordered me to do something, under what conditions is it appropriate for me to say no? If it's a lawful order, then that's going to be vanishingly small. But if it's an unlawful order, then it's very clear that you're not supposed to say yes and just get on with something. But there's a whole range of activities in the non-black and white legal area where actually what you need to do is apply judgment and have thought through these issues carefully as to know exactly what is the appropriate action in a particular circumstance, in a particular context. And that's what the cards are particularly useful for, because you can get them out on a pre-deployment training program. You can get them out on a Friday afternoon before everybody goes home for the weekend, and you can just pick a card at random and you can read it out and then ask the team what they think and have a debate, have a discussion. Go through to the QR code on your phone, and you can just check what the recommended approach to answering that question would be. And we've done lots of different languages. We've got that's the English one, and we've got them in Arabic, and we've got the French and the Spanish and all the different editions, Serbian, Turkish, and they are being used all over the world. But
that's what I was going to ask about, David, is you have examples of people really putting these to use, and so this is not merely theoretical. The physical cards have already been out in the world, right?
They really have. They're being used. For example, there's many hundreds of packs being used by the Colombian military. There's an Australian Defence Force edition, which has been widely used there. The Royal Air Force have their own edition. It's the same questions, but obviously packaged for a particular audience. They are being used in the wild all the time. One of my favorite uses is that one of the Royal Marine Commando units up at Arbroath is using them on the live fire ranges, so that while people's adrenaline are up, while they're being tested for something else, then suddenly somebody will scream in their ear after having picked a random question. And while the adrenaline is up, they have to reason through what their answer to the ethical challenge is, which is exactly the idea of getting military ethics out of the classroom and into where it's needed.
I love that, and I also love this basic idea of making it a little bit easier to initiate these conversations that everyone knows they need to be having, but without the prompts, it can feel a bit awkward to figure out how to just get that ball rolling. And then with the background and the resources that you can get to through the other materials, you also don't feel that you're out there completely on a limb on your own to try to reason through this without anyone backing you up who's had perhaps a little more time to quietly reflect on the issues that you're looking at under a bit more stressful conditions. So that, I think that's marvelous. So why take it from that realm, from that tactile cards to app on your phone? What is added by making it an app?
Well, it was a fantastic opportunity that came along with an opportunity for Case Western Reserve University and King's College London to collaborate and take this successful proven model and apply it into a new area. And the app gives us a range of new possibilities. There we go. Thank you very much. The most exciting element is that anybody can access this without having to order it or commission copies. It's out there now. You can go to the App Store, you can go to Google Play, and you can download it, and you can download it for free. Because that is what our arrangement is all about. It's making this tool available as widely as possible. But the other advantage, of course, is that that there are multiple advantages, but one of them being that you would have to have different editions if you wanted different languages, whereas this one, you can switch between the languages, which means you can use it when you're on deployment, you can share information with allies and partners, you can learn a new language using it if you want.
I love that. I also love the element you mentioned briefly there, that it was important to us here at Case Western, and I know to you as well at King's, that it be free. And this is because we are emphasizing this is a universal service. We are thinking of military ethics as something that has genuine benefit, that improves the condition of humanity. And that's why even the name there, yes, it's a play on a well-known other game, but Cards for Humanity, that was intentional to point out that the whole point of military ethics is not to game the system, but instead to actually try to get these things right. And that has real world consequences, not only in terms of preventing the extremes like atrocities and war crimes, but also smaller infractions that erode trust in institutions. And something that I've certainly always cared very deeply about in my own work, and that's the actual effect on the people who we ask to take on these roles. It's quite a lot, and you referenced this a bit when you were talking about practicing some of these cards under high stress situations, to ask people to have the mental agility to work through complex ethical problems while you're literally being shot at. And yet that's exactly what we demand. That's exactly what we need them to be able to do. So any tools that we can provide that make that at all an easier prospect, it seems like, you know, one of the things we have an obligation to do, not not just a desire to do.
Very much so. I heartily agree. We're not going to magically fix PTSD or moral injury through an app, but we do know that if you have had a chance to think through the implications of future actions in advance, think through what is an appropriate course of action, what should I do if this happened? If you've had a chance to think about and engage with the problem in advance, the chances of you not only doing the right thing at the time, but being able to live with it afterwards, not constantly questioning whether or not you did the right thing. It's a game-changing situation, and I think that's so important.
Well, for that reason, I hope it continues to evolve. Is that that's part of our plan, right? To continue to evolve this even further.
Yes, of course, one of the limitations of the physical cards is that once you have the print version in your hand, marvelous though it is and beautifully tactile, that's it, it's fixed. Now you can change the online material it links to at any time, but the app itself is infinitely updatable and amendable. So we can change, we can evolve. We can add in a fifth suit if we wish. The app itself can continue to evolve, and we can continue to add more supporting material. One of the things that we would very much like to do is add to the range of talking heads experts of different ranks and different responsibilities and specialisms, but people giving their own answers to the questions and why they think that is the right answer. And that again will be able to be directly accessible on the app itself, which is so useful.
Oh, that's marvelous. And I think too, in that realm, one of the things that I'm excited about is being able to bring in talking heads, not only scholars like you and me, but people who have lived some of these situations. And of course, there are people who are both, who are both practitioners and scholars, but people who if you are the person using the app and you turn to that resource, you really are getting an authentic response as from someone who has really had to wrestle with these kinds of problems and isn't just trying to give a glib or a facile answer.
So I'm very excited about this collaboration between King's College London and Case Western Reserve University and the Centre for Military Ethics and the Inamori International Centre for Ethics and Excellence. I'm very proud of what we have produced, and I'm excited about where this could develop to in the future as well.
So we invite you to find the app. It is available now for free on either Apple or Android phones. And we will welcome any feedback that you have that will help us continuously improve this offering of Cards for Humanity.